OMG. Your soulmate cut someone off after finding out this about you. The message arrived at exactly 4:11. Not because destiny obeyed clocks, but because some moments have a strange way of announcing themselves. Far away, in a city you've never visited, someone stared silently at a glowing phone screen. Their heartbeat slowed instead of racing. They didn't panic. They simply realized that everything they had believed about one person had been completely wrong. That person was someone they had trusted for years. Someone who always claimed to know you. Someone who spoke your name with confidence while secretly rewriting your story. For months, perhaps even years, they had painted you as careless, unreliable, impossible to understand. Every conversation added another brushstroke until a false portrait existed in your soulmate's mind. Your soulmate never hated you. They simply believed the version they had been handed. Until tonight. A small accident uncovered a truth no one expected. It wasn't a dramatic confession. There were no shouting voices. No movie-style confrontation. Just one forgotten folder. One collection of old messages. One unexpected witness. And suddenly every lie began collapsing under its own weight. Your soulmate read every word twice. Then 3 times. The silence became heavier than any argument. Because hidden inside those messages wasn't proof that you were perfect. It was proof that you had quietly protected people who had never protected you. You stayed silent while others blamed you. You accepted misunderstandings instead of exposing someone's secrets. You carried responsibility that never truly belonged to you. Not because you were weak. Because your heart refused to create more pain. That single discovery changed everything. Across the room, another person kept talking, unaware that the ground beneath their carefully built story had already begun to crack. They laughed. They criticized you once again. They expected agreement. Instead, your soulmate slowly looked up. The smile disappeared from their face. For the first time, they asked one simple question. Why did you never tell me this part? The room froze. Excuses appeared instantly. Oh, that's out of context. You don't understand. It wasn't like that. But the evidence couldn't be erased. Every explanation sounded smaller than the truth sitting on the screen. Your soulmate wasn't angry because someone had lied. They were heartbroken because they almost lost respect for someone who had deserved kindness all along. That realization hurt more than betrayal itself. Sometimes the deepest regret isn't making the wrong choice. It's realizing you almost believed the wrong story. Outside, rain tapped softly against the window. Inside, an invisible chapter quietly ended. Without raising their voice. Without creating drama. Without demanding attention. Your soulmate made a decision. Some relationships cannot survive the weight of repeated dishonesty. Trust isn't destroyed in one sentence. It disappears one hidden truth at a time. The person sitting across from them noticed the distance immediately. What are you thinking? Your soulmate answered honestly. I'm thinking I never actually knew the person you kept describing. Another uncomfortable silence. Then came the question no liar enjoys hearing. What else have you hidden? There was no answer. Only nervous laughter. Eyes searching for another escape. Another distraction. Another excuse. But truth has an unusual habit. Once it enters the room, nothing remains comfortable. That evening ended earlier than expected. No dramatic goodbye. No slammed doors. No emotional speeches. Your soulmate simply stood up, collected their jacket, looked one final time at the person who had manipulated their perception, and quietly walked away. Some endings don't sound loud. Some endings sound like footsteps growing farther away. As they stepped outside, cool air filled their lungs. For the first time in a long while, their thoughts weren't controlled by someone else's opinions. Instead, one question echoed repeatedly. Who are they, really? Not the version created by gossip. Not the version shaped by jealousy. The real person. The one hidden beneath misunderstandings. Far away, completely unaware of everything happening, you continued living your ordinary day. You smiled politely at strangers. Helped someone without expecting thanks. Ignored another unfair comment because peace mattered more than proving yourself right. You had no idea. Someone's opinion of you had just transformed forever. Sometimes destiny doesn't introduce two souls with fireworks. Sometimes it begins by removing the wrong voices standing between them. And somewhere beneath the same night sky, your soulmate whispered quietly to themselves. If everything I believed was wrong, then maybe I need to find the truth for myself. That single thought became the beginning of a journey neither of you expected. And neither life would ever look the same again. The next morning arrived with an unusual sense of clarity. Your soulmate woke earlier than usual, but instead of reaching for their phone to scroll through endless distractions, they remained still, staring at the ceiling. The discoveries from the previous night replayed in their mind like fragments of a forgotten dream that refused to disappear. Every conversation they had once accepted without question suddenly felt different. Every warning about you now sounded rehearsed. Every criticism now carried the unmistakable shadow of someone else's jealousy. They whispered to themselves. What if I've judged someone I've never truly known? That question lingered throughout the day. Instead of asking others about you, they made a decision that surprised even themselves. They would search for the truth, not through rumors, but through quiet observation. Over the following days, they began noticing something remarkable. Whenever your name appeared in conversation, people reacted in completely different ways. Some smiled warmly. Some became strangely uncomfortable. Others quickly changed the subject. The contrast fascinated them. How could one person inspire such different stories? One afternoon, an elderly woman happened to mention your name while speaking to a small group. Your soulmate listened carefully. The woman smiled gently and said, "That person has a habit of helping people without expecting applause. Most never even realize what they've done for them." Those words struck deeply. They sounded nothing like the image your soulmate had been shown before. Later that same evening, another stranger unknowingly confirmed something similar. Again and again, your actions spoke louder than the stories others had invented. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The people who truly knew your character described kindness. The people who barely knew you repeated accusations. That realization changed everything. Meanwhile, the individual your soulmate had quietly distanced themselves from began noticing the silence. Messages were sent. Calls were made. Excuses appeared. You're overthinking. I was only trying to protect you. Don't believe everything you hear. Ironically, those words now carried no weight. Trust, once broken, could not be rebuilt through convenience. Instead of responding immediately, your soulmate chose peace. For the first time in years, they stopped allowing fear to guide their decisions. Instead, curiosity took its place. Across town, life continued normally for you. You had no idea that someone was slowly uncovering the truth behind countless misunderstandings. You continued treating people with quiet respect. You encouraged a coworker having a difficult week. You comforted a worried friend. You thanked a stranger for the smallest act of kindness. None of these moments were performed for recognition. No audience applauded. No camera recorded them. Yet somehow, these ordinary choices became the strongest evidence of who you truly were. Fate has an unusual way of revealing character. Not through grand speeches, but through unnoticed moments. Days turned into weeks. Your soulmate realized something unexpected. The more they searched for flaws that matched the rumors, the fewer they found. Instead, they discovered resilience, compassion, patience, and an incredible ability to remain gentle despite life's disappointments. One evening, standing beneath a sky filled with fading sunlight, they admitted something they had never expected to say. I owe them an apology, even if they never know it. The wind carried those words into the evening air. At that very same moment, you looked toward the horizon for reasons you couldn't explain. A strange feeling settled over your heart. Not sadness. Not excitement. Just the quiet sense that something invisible was shifting. Neither of you knew it yet. But every false story that had once stood between your paths was beginning to disappear. Not because destiny erased the past, but because truth had finally found its voice. And somewhere, hidden just beyond the next chapter, a meeting neither of you could predict was drawing closer. A quiet change had begun. Not the kind that announces itself with dramatic moments or impossible coincidences, but the kind that slowly reshapes a person's heart from the inside. Your soulmate no longer searched for answers in other people's opinions. Instead, they watched life carefully. Every small detail became another piece of a puzzle they had unknowingly ignored for far too long. One afternoon, while walking through a familiar street, they witnessed something unexpected. An elderly man was struggling to carry several heavy bags across the road. Before anyone else noticed, someone stepped forward without hesitation. That person was you. You didn't ask for recognition. You didn't look around to see who was watching. You simply smiled, carried the bag safely to the other side, wished the man a peaceful day, and quietly continued on your way. The elderly man called after you, "May kindness always find its way back to you." You simply waved and disappeared into the crowd. Your soulmate stood frozen. There were no cameras. No audience. No reason to pretend. That single moment revealed more about your character than months of rumors ever could. A question echoed in their mind. If this is who they are when no one is watching, then who created the version of them I believed? That evening, they returned home carrying a weight that felt strangely hopeful. They opened an old notebook and began writing. Not about you. About themselves. Every assumption. Every judgment. Every moment they had accepted someone else's version of the truth without asking questions. For the first time, they admitted their own mistake. It wasn't easy. But growth rarely is. Meanwhile, life continued for you. There were still challenges. People still misunderstood your silence. Some confused your patience for weakness. Others assumed your kindness meant you could be taken for granted. Yet you kept choosing peace. Not because it was easier, but because bitterness had never felt like home to you. One rainy evening, fate quietly arranged another moment. Your soulmate happened to enter a small bookstore to escape the weather. As they browsed the shelves, they overheard a familiar voice. It was yours. You were speaking softly with the shop owner, recommending a book to a nervous student preparing for an important exam. The right words, you said with a gentle smile, can change someone's future. Never stop learning. The student thanked you with genuine gratitude. Again, you asked for nothing in return. Your soulmate watched from a distance. They realized something remarkable. Your kindness wasn't an act. It was a habit. And habits are much harder to fake than moments. When you left the bookstore, the owner smiled and quietly said, "That person always leaves this place brighter than they found it." Those words stayed with your soulmate long after the rain had stopped. Later that night, another message appeared from the person they had cut off. This time, it wasn't an apology. It was another attempt to pull them back into old patterns. But something had changed. Your soulmate looked at the message for a long moment. Then calmly deleted it without replying. Some doors don't need dramatic endings. Sometimes the strongest goodbye is simply refusing to walk back through them. Outside, the clouds slowly parted. Moonlight spread across the quiet streets. Far away, you stood beneath the same sky, unaware that someone was slowly replacing years of misunderstanding with genuine respect. The distance between you had not yet disappeared. You had never spoken. You had never shared a conversation. Yet an invisible bridge was being built, not by fate alone, but by truth. And somewhere deep inside, your soulmate made a silent promise. If our paths ever cross, I won't judge you by stories. I'll listen to your own voice. That promise would soon be tested. Because destiny had already begun arranging a meeting neither of you could avoid. And when that moment finally arrived, neither heart would leave unchanged. The days passed quietly, yet something invisible was pulling your lives closer together. Neither of you noticed it at first. Destiny rarely announces itself with loud celebrations. More often, it works through ordinary moments that seem insignificant until you look back and realize they changed everything. Your soulmate had stopped searching for your name online. They had stopped asking mutual acquaintances about you. Instead, they decided that if life truly intended your paths to cross, it would happen naturally. So they waited. Not with impatience, but with hope. Meanwhile, you continued living your life exactly as you always had. You worked hard. You encouraged those around you. You laughed with friends, comforted strangers, and carried your own worries without expecting anyone else to solve them. You never imagined that somewhere, someone was slowly learning to admire the person you had always been. One crisp autumn afternoon, an unexpected invitation arrived. A community charity event was being organized in the town square. Volunteers from different neighborhoods were asked to help prepare food, arrange supplies, and welcome visitors. Neither of you knew the other had accepted. When the morning finally arrived, the square buzzed with activity. Children ran between colorful tents. Families shared warm conversations. Musicians filled the air with cheerful melodies. Everyone seemed connected by one simple purpose: to help. You arrived early and immediately began carrying boxes of donated supplies. Without complaint. Without asking where the cameras were. Without expecting applause. At nearly the same moment, your soulmate walked into the square from the opposite entrance. They had come only to volunteer for a few hours. Nothing more. Or so they thought. As they looked around, their eyes landed on someone lifting a heavy crate while smiling at an elderly volunteer who looked exhausted. It was you. For a brief second, time seemed unusually quiet. Not magical. Not unrealistic. Just still. Your soulmate watched as you patiently helped every person who asked, offering encouragement even when your own hands were tired. A little girl accidentally dropped several paper decorations onto the ground. You knelt beside her. "It's okay," you said with a reassuring smile. Sometimes the best memories begin with little mistakes. The girl smiled again. Fear disappeared from her face. Your soulmate felt something shift inside. This wasn't the person they had once been warned about. This was someone whose kindness appeared effortlessly, even in moments no one else noticed. A sudden gust of wind swept across the square. Several donation forms scattered into the air. Without thinking, both of you rushed forward to catch the flying papers. One page drifted between you. Your hands reached for it at exactly the same moment. For the first time, your eyes met. Neither of you spoke immediately. There was no dramatic music. No unbelievable coincidence. Just a brief moment of genuine surprise. You smiled politely. "Looks like we had the same idea." Your soulmate laughed softly. "I think we did." You handed them the papers you had collected. "Here you go." "Thank you," they replied. Simple words. An ordinary exchange. Yet something about it felt unexpectedly meaningful. Neither of you realized that this small conversation had been quietly prepared by months of unseen events. The charity event ended as quietly as it had begun. Volunteers folded tables, packed away supplies, and exchanged warm goodbyes. The evening sky glowed with shades of orange and violet, as though reminding everyone that even the most ordinary day can leave behind extraordinary memories. You gathered your belongings and prepared to leave. Just then, you heard footsteps behind you. "Excuse me." You turned. It was the volunteer you had met earlier, your soulmate. For a brief moment, neither of you spoke. Then they smiled. "I wanted to thank you. Not just for today." You looked puzzled. "We've only just met." "That's true," they replied. "But somehow, I feel like I've been learning about you for much longer." Their words were honest, but careful. There was no rush. No attempt to explain everything at once. Instead, they suggested something simple. "Would you like to walk for a few minutes?" You nodded. The two of you walked through a quiet park as the last rays of sunlight disappeared beyond the trees. "I used to defend myself," you continued. "Eventually I realized that truth doesn't always need to shout. Sometimes it simply waits." Those words stayed with your soulmate. They realized how much strength it takes to remain kind after being misunderstood. "I owe you an apology," they said quietly. You shook your head. "You don't owe me anything. We all see life through the information we have. What matters is what we choose after discovering the truth." For a moment, neither of you spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful. Above you, the first stars appeared one by one. Your soulmate smiled. "I cut ties with the person who lied." You looked at them thoughtfully. "That must have been difficult." "It was," they admitted. "Not because I missed them, but because I realized how easily I had allowed someone else's opinion to become my own." You nodded. "We all make mistakes. Growth begins the moment we recognize them." The conversation continued for hours. You laughed. Shared stories. Discovered unexpected similarities. Both of you valued honesty. It was the beginning of the happiest chapter of their life. And you, without ever trying to prove your worth to the world, had taught them the greatest lesson of all. A person's true character is revealed not by the rumors surrounding them, but by the quiet kindness they show when no one is watching. The journey that began with misunderstanding ended with trust. The distance created by lies was replaced by understanding. And two hearts that almost remained strangers found each other, not through perfect timing, but through the courage to seek the truth.